Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about something that, let's be honest, gets a pretty bad rap: humility. It's often seen as weakness, right? But what if it's actually the key to a powerful and purposeful life? We're going to explore a really insightful sermon by Pastor Kong that flips that idea on its head. Let's get into it. Okay, so right off the bat, let's start with this incredible analogy. Picture the ultimate goal, the highest virtue, love, as the peak of a massive mountain. So how in the world do you get up there? Well, according to this teaching, there's only one way: the path of humility. Humility isn't the destination. It's the trail itself, the step-by-step climb that actually gets you to the top. It's not about being low, it's about the way up. So, keeping that mountain in our minds, let's dig into our first section. Why is humility so critical? Well, Pastor Kong uses another great image. He calls it the soil. You can't grow anything worthwhile, patience, kindness, you name it, in bad soil. Humility is that rich, fertile ground where all the other virtues can actually take root and grow. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating, because it shows what happens when we try to be a good person without that foundation. Without humility, even our best qualities can get, well, twisted. Think about it. Our love for others can suddenly become about how proud we are of being so loving. Our service to the community, it can turn into a performance, a way to promote ourselves. And any spiritual gifts we might have, whoops, they just became a stage for our own ego. It's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it? And this brings us to a really crucial spiritual principle. The sermon puts it in these stark terms. Pride literally creates opposition. It puts you at odds with God. But humility does the exact opposite. It opens the door for grace, for help, for favor. So it's a fundamental choice, and the outcomes couldn't be more different. So if humility is so important, we have to get it right. What does it actually mean? This is where a lot of us get tripped up, because we think it's about having low self-esteem or putting ourselves down. But as we're about to see, that's not it at all. This right here is the absolute key. The huge misconception is that humility means thinking less of yourself, telling yourself you're worthless. That's not it. True humility is thinking of yourself less. See the difference? The focus just shifts. It's not about your value going down, it's about your self-obsession going down. You just stop making everything about you. And of course, this idea is captured perfectly in that famous quote from C.S. Lewis. It's so simple, but it just reframes the whole conversation. The goal isn't to crush your self-worth, it's to quiet your ego. It's about not needing to be the main character in every single scene of your life. And to show what this looks like in a real person's life, Pastor Kong told this beautiful story about his late sister, Wee Wee. She was deaf and mute her whole life and served for over 30 years in her church's deaf ministry. She was so quiet about her life, so behind the scenes, that a lot of people in the church didn't even realize she was the pastor's sister. She just lived simply, served faithfully, and never asked for a bit of recognition. That is the perfect picture of thinking of yourself less. Okay, so we've got a handle on what humility is, but how do we actually get it? This isn't something you can just decide to have one day. The sermon makes it really clear that it has to be practiced, intentionally. So let's look at 4 practical ways to start walking that path. So here's our roadmap. We've got 4 key practices: honest confession, gratitude, serving others, and embracing life's humblings. These are the actual steps we can take to build real humility. Let's break each one down. All right, the first one is about getting real with yourself. Think of it like holding up a spiritual mirror. It's about seeing yourself exactly as you are: the good, the bad, the ugly, without that filter of pride that we all have. Now, this isn't about beating yourself up. It's about seeing clearly, because it's only when we see ourselves clearly that we can genuinely surrender and start to grow. Next up, gratitude. You might wonder, how does being thankful build humility? Well, it completely shifts your perspective. When you're truly grateful, you're forced to admit that most of the good things in your life, your skills, your chances, even your health, aren't things you achieved all on your own. They're gifts. That simple shift from "I earned this" to "I received this" is a direct hit against pride. Practice number 3 is serving others. And it works on this really wild countercultural principle. In our world, getting to the top means people serve you. But in the spiritual economy described here, the exact opposite is true. Greatness is found in serving. The way to go up is actually by choosing to go down and lift others up. And there's this incredible story about Mother Teresa that just perfectly illustrates this. She was out raising money for her work with the poor, and a man who despised what she was doing actually spat in her outstretched hand. I mean, can you imagine? But without missing a beat, she just looked at him and said, "Thank you, sir. That is for me." And then she held her hand out again and said, "Now can you give something for my children?" Wow, that is humility in the face of fire. Okay, this last practice, this is the tough one, because it's about what you do when life punches you in the gut. When you fail, when someone criticizes you, when things fall apart, our knee-jerk reaction is to get angry, defensive, or bitter. This practice is about making a conscious choice right in that painful moment to respond with humility instead, to see these setbacks not as an attack, but maybe as an opportunity to be refined. And to bring this home, Pastor Kong shared this intensely personal story from his time in prison. He was locked in a tiny cell for 23 hours a day, and he decided to start serving his cellmates by washing the floor and scrubbing the single toilet by hand. He said that daily, humbling act literally drained the pride and entitlement right out of his heart. And in that raw moment of humiliation, he had a breakthrough. God was using this horrible season to do a deep work inside him. So after all that, after defining humility, talking about what it isn't, and how to practice it, we get to the big question. Why? What's the end game here? What is the true purpose of walking this path? Because it's got to be about more than just self-improvement, right? And it all boils down to this. The whole point, the central message, is that the spiritual journey isn't a call to be impressive. It's not about building a resume or getting applause. It's a call to be humble. It's an invitation to just let go of the ego and live a life that's centered on something bigger than yourself. And we'll end on the simple, profound prayer that closed the sermon. It's this powerful admission that this isn't something we can just muscle through on our own. True humility has to be formed in us. And it leaves us with a pretty deep thought to chew on. What would our lives actually look like if we let that process happen?